core member of Hindi Mahasasthan. He had event there, and we did a Prabhupada book distribution there. So let us wish Prabhuji by chanting 3 times Hare Krishna Mahamantra for his birthday. Happy birthday, Krishna Coach Vinod Prabhu. So Hare Krishna,
Thank you.
Krishna,
Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Hare
Hare
Krishna,
Krishna, Hare
Rama
Rama,
Rama,
Hare
Hare
Hare,
Hare
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 Rama,
Hare
Rama,
Rama,
Hare
Hare
Rama,
Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare
Hare
Krishna,
Krishna, Hare
Hare
Krishna,
Krishna,
Krishna
Krishna
Krishna,
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 Hare Hare,
Hare
Hare
Rama,
Rama, Hare
Hare
Rama,
Rama,
Rama
Rama
Rama,
Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare
Hare
Krishna,
Krishna, Krishna Krishna,
Hare
Hare
Rama,
Rama,
Hare
Hare
Rama,
Rama,
Rama
Rama
Rama,
Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare
Hare. Thank you all devotees and happy Krishna Prasad birthday, Vinod Prabhu. Dandat Pranam.
Thank you. हरे कृष्णा मम नाम हलधर दास हम श्रीमद Goswami Prabhupada ki jai Guru Maharaj ki jai. My humble obeisance to all the devotees on a phone call. Hare Krishna Mataji.
हरे कृष्णा प्रभु जी, गुरु महाराज की जय, प्रभुपाद की जय। धन्यवाद प्रभु जी। हरे कृष्णा।
Hare Krishna, मम नाम विकास कुलकर्णी, हम टोरंटो नगरे वसामी, गुरु महाराज की जय, श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय. My humble obeisances to all the devotees on the phone call. Hare Krishna.
हरे कृष्णा प्रभु जी, गुरु महाराज की जय, प्रभुपाद की जय। धन्यवाद प्रभु जी। हरे कृष्णा। Hare Krishna. Would anybody else like to announce their names? Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Today we are starting an introduction to Bhagavad Gita. Hare Krishna, Vikas Prabhuji and Haladar Prabhuji, please take over the call now. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. I just wanted to clarify that, in the message that you would have received on the WhatsApp group, it does say that we will discuss chapter 1, but we decided, Haladar Das Prabhu's guidance was, and I completely agree with him, that we first need to uh, understand the introduction that Prabhupada has written for Bhagavad Gita. It has so many beautiful points that we must know before we approach Bhagavad Gita. So when you are approaching an exalted place, if we are entering a temple, first we ensure that we've taken a bath. And even as we reach the temple, we then wash our hands and feet and ensure that there is external purity and then there is internal purity as we enter the Garbhagriha. So similarly, when approaching a sacred text like Bhagavad Gita, we should prepare ourselves and what mindset and with what approach we should listen to Bhagavad Gita, to study Bhagavad Gita, to recite Bhagavad Gita. That is what Prabhupada has very clearly put out in the introduction section. So today we will try to cover the introduction section. So that is one change. And before we begin, we will start with the Mangalacharan prayers. So Sumati Mataji and if Harshita Mataji is there, maybe can I please request you to recite the Mangalacharan prayers for all of us?
Yes, Prabhuji. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanashulakaya Chakshuranmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayyam Darati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamshta Shri Rupam Sagrajata Sagana Raghunatanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijan Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvita Mishta Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine निर्विशेषशून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे हे कृष्ण करुणा सिन्धु दीनबन्धु जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कान्त राधा कान्त नमोस्तुते तप्त काञ्चन गौराङ्गी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिय वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे।
Thank you, Mataji, for such a wonderful recitation of the Mangalacharan prayers. And as you will see, the introduction to Bhagavad Gita also begins with the Mangalacharan prayers. But before we get into that, and today we are not going to attempt to read the introduction because it's going to be a long reading otherwise. We'll try to summarize it in this session. So for the summarization, I think it would be most appropriate if we reach out to the senior most devotee here and Haladar Das Prabhu, if you would like to please say a few words about the introduction and the importance of it and the contents of the introduction before we begin our class.
Hare Krishna Prabhu and all the devotees, please accept my humble obeisance. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj. And thank you very much for giving me opportunity to say something about it. It is a very, very important to read the introductions, of Bhagavad Gita, which I heard during the lecture in 1973 when I was in Los Angeles listening Prabhupada, And I realized by reading it how important it is. So much important before you start to enter in a Bhagavad Gita, or so it is. We are all most fortunate to read under Bhagavad Gita and understand it, or try to understand or learn from the author what he's trying to say. And through the Guru Maharaj speech, we try to understand what Lord's trying to tell all the human beings, living beings. I mean, mostly human beings, not living beings. Human beings, how to get back there, back to the Godhead. So, the first all we required is Shraddha. Do I want to uh, learn and educate myself through the Bhagavad Gita? Do I want to know who am I? So that 30 pages, I believe, if I'm not making mistakes, it's so important that you read slowly and try to understand as much as you can within your capacity. And then we have a guidelines to understand. So we have a sannyasis or some the good speaker like Vikas Prabhu, and we can understand it. Put all your questions on the sides. Empty yourself. If you have a lot of questions and if you try to read it, no, it's not going to help you. No. Have a room for the new knowledge in your heart. So that's where the Shraddha works, that I really want to read and understand Bhagavad Gita. Read from beginning and don't jump. No. Then you read about the writers, our writers like Prabhupada, and he got his knowledge through the disciplic successions, through his Guru Maharajas. And he followed the step by steps and see how amazing, how hard he tried to write this book. It is a never ending book. It's not a knowledge. I mean, it's a novel. It's total knowledge. And we are so fortunate to read and understand this Bhagavad Gita. It's the most foundation knowledge of all the scriptures you read. That's what Prabhupada has been saying. That's most foundation knowledge. And if we have a strong foundations about it, then we can build our knowledge. And all the sastras are based on this foundation knowledge. So we try to know Bhagavad Gita. I've been in this Western world for a long time, and I see many of us cannot introduce ourselves or our beliefs, what we have. We talk about all the Vedas, we talk about all the scriptures we have it, but do I know it? We talk about Rishimani's, but do I really know about it? What is inside of it? No. So we cannot introduce ourselves to the Western world. And many, if somebody you ask through about 15, 20 sentences about the Bhagavad Gita or Vedas, we're not able to do because we don't study it. So actually, I'll go short on it, but it's about 700 verses in Bhagavad Gita, exact 700 verses. And see the most beautiful compositions of this Bhagavad Gita. Each verse is like a diamond. When I was young and in India and was going to the temple, Guru Maharaj used to teach what beautiful diamonds we have. 700 diamonds you put together and you make a necklace out of it. So the compositions of each verse is so beautifully, and it is according to your tongue movements, you probably will never find such a beautiful compositions in anywhere else. Bhagavad Gita is composed such a way your tongue movements go accordingly. It's a beautiful science. It's just like a wavelength, in ocean, like the waves coming. That's way it's been composed. That's reason the most beautiful big universities are surprised about how Bhagavad Gita's verses has been composed. And more you learn yourself systematically to recite it, you will enjoy so much. Because the human body, as I was reading, has 37 to 43 trillion cells in average human body, And recitation, the vibration affects your body so much, so much, so much that if you constantly recite, you feel isolations within your bodies. You realize that this body is reciting these verses and you're listening with the Lord. That beautiful that beautiful compositions has been done by the Lord, Vedvyas Maharaj and Ganpati Maharaj, So normally it has two chand. Out of 700 verses, that 655 are Anustup chand, which is normally you see in the two lines, It has 32 Sanskrit letters, and you recite 8 letters at a time and you pause. That way you do 32 Sanskrit letters. Then there is Upjadichan, which has 44 letters. And you recite 22 letters at a time, the Sanskrit letter, not English. But since Prabhupada has introduced this Bhagavad Gita in Western world, and people don't know the Sanskrit or Hindi, so he wrote, translated in English, and he has a beautiful work done. So anybody in Western world, those who don't know Sanskrit, can easily learn it. And now actually many Indians are learning that way, through the English way, because we didn't pay attention on the Sanskrit language in our country. So the Anustup Chand are 655 and Upjati Chand are 55 verses. That makes the 700 verses of the Bhagavad Gita. Out of that, there's a 4 characters introduced in Bhagavad Gita. Dhritarashtra Maharaj, Sanjay Maharaj, Arjun Maharaj, and Shri Krishna Bhagavan. So Dhritarashtra Maharaj speaks only 1 verse. Sanjay Maharaj speaks 44 verses. Arjun Maharaj speaks 85 verses. And Bhagavan speaks 574 verses. Now, like I say, you have to see yourself how seriously you want to read the Bhagavad Gita or understand it. And see the effects of the recitation in your body, which is you have to practice normally every day. We are actually, my own experience, within my capacity to understand Bhagavad Gita, that we are reading and learning Bhagavad Gita not to build ego, but to dissolve the ego, which a normal human body has it. That's the biggest wall we have it between us and Krishna, between us and Bhagavan. So the first 30 pages, are the bird eye view, which is finest way to start the Bhagavad Gita. I believe, and we should read very often, There is 18 chapters, and Prabhupada has divided in 3 parts of it: Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, and Jnana Vignan Yoga. Well, of course, and all the scriptures are Shruti and Suti, So what we read in the Bhagavad Gita is, of course, a borrowed knowledge, We're reading somebody's knowledge has been introduced, just like a theory, This theory is not our knowledge, of course not, but it encourages us to start. It encourages us to learn. It encourages us to really get to find ourselves, who we are, what we are, why we are on this earth. What is reason I am in this human body? Who am I? These are the most beautiful things we find in Bhagavad Gita. To me, I just love it so much. I like to listen from whoever talk about Bhagavad Gita. I like to learn everything from the person. So when you see the person like that, you just rob him, Get all the knowledge from him, but ask all the questions you have it possible, if you get time. So this robbery you have to learn from beginning of the Bhumika or introductions of the Bhagavad Gita. And these 5 beautiful subjects Lord has explained, which you will find nowhere so systematically, is as described in what is Bhagwan, what is Prakriti, nature, what is Atma, what is soul, what is called the time, and what is karma. What 4 subjects are like a sanatan, which is no human being can change it. Only the karma, which is explained in it. And so much knowledge, I really can explain everything. I don't have all the words to explain about it, but really, really, if you really want to learn and you really want to know our Indian scriptures, go Bhagavad Gita introductions and very precisely read each page, each word, and it's like each word of the thing is a diamond for us. Each verses are like all 700 verses are like a formulas, like E is equal to mc squared. Dr. Einstein has said these are the formulas of Lord has given us. Each has so much meaning, and it is never could be understood by anyone, as Sud Goswami said in Gita Mahatmyam. There's nobody knows Gita except the Lord Krishna. In his Gita Mahatmya, if I find the page, here. It says the Krishna janati ve samyak kvachit kaunteya evacha vyaso va vyasaputro va yagnavalko tamaitili. Only Krishna knows the Gita, and Arjun Maharaj knows some of it. So does the Vyas Maharaj, Sukdev Maharaj, Yagnavalka, and Janak Maharaj knows all this very little. Rest the people just listening to these great souls, and then they explaining to all other human beings. So this is what shortly I want to say, Vikas Prabhu. And more I want to learn, I'll be most fortunate from any of the speaker like you or other sannyasis. So this is all I know, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Please take it over from here.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you so much. I always say this to everybody who, when a topic is relevant to this type of conversation concept, that how is important than the words. And today, as we speak, I'll also explain it because that topic will come up. And Prabhu, you brought about the bhav with which we should be, approaching Bhagavad Gita. So thank you for that. All I have is words thereafter. So I'm just going to, put out what Srila Prabhupada has said in the introduction in few words. Today I have a hard stop at 8:20, so I'll try to be brief. There are actually 7 topics that we will try to cover as part of Srila Prabhupada's introduction. So the first topic itself that stood out to me is why is it that Prabhupada has started with, the Mangalacharan prayers that we recite, that the two Matajis recited it for us before we began this class. The second topic is Prabhupada then says, why? Why is he writing the Bhagavad Gita? There are so many Bhagavad Gita. So why this particular Bhagavad Gita as it is, Yatharup? Why that Bhagavad Gita? So Prabhupada is humble. He is not assuming that he has a God-given right to write the Bhagavad Gita and to preach the Bhagavad Gita. He is actually justifying why he wants to do it, why he has to do it. And then Prabhupada spends fairly good amount of time and detail for us to prepare us as to how to receive Bhagavad Gita. So there is a lot of different points that Prabhupada makes as to how to receive Bhagavad Gita, the message within Bhagavad Gita. Then he speaks a bit about how Bhagavad Gita removes our ajnana. And Hladaldas touched upon it, where he said that there are those 5 topics that are covered in Bhagavad Gita and how those topics are relevant to removal of ajnana. Then the other topics that are contained in the introduction is what is the ultimate purpose? So, okay, you received Bhagavad Gita, you know how Bhagavad Gita can remove the ajnana. So, with this knowledge, what do you want to accomplish? What is the ultimate purpose of achieving this knowledge? And then Prabhupada ends the introduction with Shankaracharya, Adi Shankaracharya written Gita Mahatma. So there are 7 or 8 shlokas there that Prabhupada, elaborates in the later part of the introduction. But in between, he also, before he gets into Adi Shankaracharya's Gita Mahatmya, he also speaks of why this Bhagavad Gita is different from any other secular text, why it is something that is beyond human research. And he spends fair amount of time with good logic as to why this is so. And it is relevant. So again, Prabhupada's humble mood in writing Bhagavad Gita is first to justify why he is writing, and then to also very humbly explain that normally you will say, oh, I want to experiment this, I want to experiment that. If I have not seen it, I cannot, I don't believe it. If I have not experienced it, I don't believe it. Prabhupada is trying to tell us to elevate ourselves above these kind of things, because this knowledge cannot be experienced through such experiments, external experiments. So that is another way or another key aspect of Prabhupada's introduction. And then that is how he's written. So we will get into these 7 different aspects. So very first verse of the introduction, where we say that Om Ajnana Timirandasya. I, I, I was always wondering, maybe it is customary to start with the Mangalacharan prayers. Maybe it is to invoke auspiciousness. But when I actually heard another Prabhu talk about the introduction, so this is me just being, a gramophone. Somebody else's voice is coming out from this. So when I heard that Prabhu describe it, it actually brought romance to me. So the significance of the word and this verse, the word within this verse is Ajnana. What is the significance of that word? And why Prabhupada starts with this particular verse? So in context of that, the Prabhu had quoted from 3rd canto of Srimad Bhagvatam, 12th chapter, verse 2. And the text goes like this: Sasarjagre andha tamishram atha tamishram adikrit mahamoham cha moham cha tamhascha ajnana vrittayah. So there are 5 different things that are being talked about. But first, let me just say, read the translation of that verse that I just recited. Brahma first created the nascent engagements like self-deception, the sense of death, anger after frustration, the sense of false ownership, and the illusory bodily conception or forgetfulness of one's real identity. So this is the translation of that verse. Let's understand what this means. So basically, when we hear the word and we contemplate the word Agyan, think of that as, as a crude example, the illness of flu. So we are afflicted by the illness, but the illness has certain manifestations or symptoms. So the flu has fever, maybe you have cough, you have cold, you have body ache, right? So these are all the symptoms of flu. Similarly, what are the symptoms of Ajnana? It is not sufficient to say that it is ignorance. Ignorance of what? So this verse from Srimad Bhagvatam 3.12.2 that I just quoted tells what that ignorance is. So first ignorance, and I will not go into that order. I'll go into the order of those 5 things that are mentioned in a sequence that will make sense for us. So the first is, the last word mentioned is tamaha, but I'll speak of that as first. So darkness in self-knowledge. So as Brahma was creating this, universe, he created a way whereby we forget our own self-identity. So that darkness in self-knowledge, we do not only that we forget ourselves, that we are the souls, this world does not even remind us that we are the souls. That is the darkness in self-knowledge, and that is ignorance in this world. That is tamaha. The second thing is moham. So there are two words, mahamoham and moham. So it is interesting. Moham is illusory conception. So now what does that mean? Moha means, there are billions and trillions of atoms in front of me. But instead of seeing the atoms and the group of atoms as they are, and seeing that universality all across the world, we get fixated on the shape, structure, name, form, characteristics of certain groupings of atoms. And then we say, oh, this is a tree in front of me, and that is the road in front of me, or this is the house, this is the wall, this is my child, that's my wife. But it is basically those atoms that have come together and formed a certain shape. We've given it a certain name. We associate it with certain relationship. That is moha. Now, what is mahamoha? This is funny, even in the words that are used. It is, those who may be in financial world, they will understand. There is product and then there is a derivative product. So from the moha, we go one step further. That's what is that second step? We start to take ownership of those groups of atoms. And that is the Mahamoha, that this is mine, that's not mine, I like this, I don't like this, this is favorable for me, that is an enemy for me, etc. We assign this kind of attributes to this formation that is around us. So that is the Mahamoha. Then there are other two words, the first two words that are described in the words, Andha Tamishram and Tamishram. So now that I am a soul and I am acting as if I am a body, but it doesn't end there. We are now given, even though we are the eternal soul, Jayate Mriyate Va Kadachin, we know that from Bhagavad Gita, but Brahma created the sense of death and the feeling of fearfulness of death. That is Andha Tamishra. And Tamishra is, this is very interesting, anger upon frustration. So why is that ignorance? First of all, from moha, we have mahamoha. But if something does not go according to our mahamoha, then we get frustrated. But why should we get angry? I never thought of it. But as the Prabhu was talking about it, and then even though I had read Srimad Bhagvatam before, I went back to this words, and now it is sort of illuminating that, yeah, if we are frustrated, why do we get angry? Why can't it be something that can be just taken in our stride? So that is the fifth type of illusion that Brahma has created. So all these five put together make this world Timirandha. Timirandha is, it is intense darkness, intense ajnana that is created around us because of these five things. Now, the key thing here is we are not created, the souls. Na jayate mriyate va kadache. We were never born. We were never, brought into this world. We always existed before, during, and after this world. But Ajnana is something that is created. So it is like, so how do we understand? It is like the soul is fully cognizant, and we know that we are part of the Lord. Lord is Satchit Ananda. So we are also Satchit Ananda. Chit means consciousness. We are aware. Awareness includes all knowledge, because awareness cannot be killed. Knowledge can be gained, knowledge can be refuted, etc. But awareness just increases, keeps increasing. So yesterday I was not aware. Now somebody told me something, so I'm aware. I got some experience, I become more aware. So that is what the soul is. And then Ajnana is something that is covering that soul to make us enjoy this world, because at some point of time we wanted to enjoy this world without, serving the Lord. So that is how, or that is why this Ajnana is created. And it is like, your eyes can see. In a crude example, your eyes can completely see, but you have put your hand in front of it. You cupped your hand in front of your eyes, so you cannot see. So it is artificially created blindness. Similarly, this world is an artificially created blindness for us. Think of this as we've come into, we are like that audience that goes to the cineplex, the multiplex, and movie after movie, birth after birth, we want to see something else. There is a movie that is pleasurable, there is a movie that is horrific, there is a movie that is comedy, there is a movie that is familial. Whatever it is, whatever the theme may be, everyone's life has these different themes, and everyone is enjoying a different type of movie in this world. There are, the beauty of this world is it is interlinked. Every movie of every other person is linked with somebody else's movie, but we all are watching our own movies. This ajnana that is created takes away the feeling of audience, that I am just a witness to see this and go away. It makes us live the character that is in front of us and feel the pain and the pleasure of that character, the wins and losses of that character, and associate with that character. And that's the madness. We sit in the movie theater and we think that is that, we start to think we are the hero or the heroine on the screen. That is the madness. And that movie can only play in darkness, right? If suppose there is complete light, daylight, the movie will be very hazy. You would not be interested in the movie. This is the significance of the very first verse, that there is that Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya. Now, suddenly, if the movie is going on, halfway in between, somebody switches on the light, you will immediately lose interest in the movie. This is what the Guru has done, that I am so engrossed in this worldly movie. The Guru has switched on the light for me, and now I know what is the reality. I have a home somewhere. I have to go back, not to move from one theater to another theater to another theater to keep watching these movies. So I thought it is so deep when Prabhupada starts with this verse to write his introduction. And this is again why we owe so much to our Guru, why a Guru is required to pull us out of this Ajnana. If we think Ajnana is just ignorance, then we sort of dilute the importance of removal of Ajnana. But those 5 things that I mentioned, if we think of Ajnana as a cumulative aspect of those 5 things, now we know what is that Ajnana. When we face life situations, we can perhaps think, okay, which of this Ajnana is playing, and how can I remove it? How can I rise above it? And that is where you will feel the need for the Guru. So now the second verse, I don't want to go into all the 8 verses, but the second verse in the Mangalacharan prayers, Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati So Padantikam. So again, Prabhupada is quoting this verse. Why? So there are key words here. Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam. What is Chaitanya Prabhu's, Mahaprabhu's Mano Abhishtam? What is that inner desire that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had? So in Antya Leela of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, first chapter 117, it says, Prithvite Ashe Yatha Nagaradi Grama Sarvatra Prachar Haive Mora Nama. The desire of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is that all over the world, everyone in every village and every town know of him and his Sankirtan movement. So Prabhupada is saying that that is his intention. That intention was to enliven, to convert that intention into reality, was given as a task to Rupa Goswami. So therefore this verse that intention which was to be enacted and created as a reality by Srila Rupa Goswami, he was established within this material world with this mission. So when he will grant me his shelter so that I can fulfill a part of that mission. This is Prabhupada's deepest meaning behind writing the first two words. First, there is so much ajnana. It needs to be removed. Why it needs to be removed? Because without this, the Lord's name cannot be chanted everywhere. That is the intention of the Lord. I want to be part of that intention. Sri Rupa Goswami is the Acharya who has been empowered to fulfill that kind of intention that Mahaprabhu had. And I want his shelter because without his shelter, I cannot do this. So this is how we know that we are reading a transcendental creation by an author who himself is transcendental to talk about topics that are transcendental. Because Prabhupada is not writing this book for glory. He is not writing this book for fame, name. None of that matters to him. He is writing this book with a genuine intention, a burning intention that the name of the Lord can be spread all across this world. So it is not enough for him to know Bhagavad Gita. It is not enough for him to publish Bhagavad Gita. It was more important for him that after publishing this Bhagavad Gita, it is spread all across the world in all languages so that everybody can benefit. So we owe so much to Srila Prabhupada for doing this for all of us. And that was the first part of the introduction as to the significance of the Mangalacharan prayers and their relevance right at the front of the introduction. I'll try to be very quick in the other sections. So why Bhagavad Gita? So Prabhupada, as I said, in his humility, he's saying, so has nobody else done this effort before? It's not me. So many people have written Bhagavad Gita. But he says, when he reads those Bhagavad Gita, they are basically opinions. They are not authoritative. And why are they not authoritative and they are opinions? Because he say people manipulate the words. People, contaminate the message by putting their opinions within it. And what is the concrete evidence of that? One of the things Prabhupada says is in chapter 4, verses 1 to 3, the Lord himself has said, Evam parampara praptam. So the knowledge should be received through disciplic succession. How many of the writers of Bhagavad Gita have been in a disciplic succession? And that succession can actually say that they begin from either the Shri Sampradaya or from the Vallabh Sampradaya or from the Kumar Sampradaya or from the, Brahmanaradiya Sampradaya, where our Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya comes from Brahmanaradiya Sampradaya. So can anyone who's written the book say that they first are from some sampradaya, and then can they establish that that sampradaya is from one of these four traditions, and that it is unbroken, and then can they further demonstrate that their view is part of that sampradaya? As in, my guru also thought the same thing, my guru's guru also said the same thing, guru's guru also said the same thing, and as you go back, there is consistency in what I am saying and what he is saying. Then that commentary, that Bhagavad Gita is proper. Otherwise, it is somebody else's conjecture. It is somebody else's, just speculation that, oh, it is like this, it is like that. Therefore, you will see Bhagavad Gita where even though Krishna is saying, I am here and I am talking about the Bhagavad Gita, they take Krishna out and they talk about Krishna as if he is impersonal. But what can be created that is from impersonal things? Only a person can create things. Anyway, that's a completely different subject matter. related subject matter, but different subject matter, so we will not get there. But this is why Prabhupada basically felt the need for writing a Bhagavad Gita that is authoritative, that is part of our tradition. And in the introduction of Bhagavad Gita and in so many places, Prabhupada has actually written the 32 gurus that have come in within his tradition and where he stands within that tradition, all the way from Brahma. So that is why this is authoritative. And he says, as it is. This is what my guru had said, his guru had said. And as you go back all the way, you will find there is consistency in the message. Then Prabhupada gives an example. Why must we have this kind of followership and be strict about this kind of message and the tradition and how it is passed through? Because you do not take a medicine without following the instructions of the prescriptions that are given to you. If a doctor prescribes you a medication, you do not willy-nilly decide, I'll take it in the morning, I'll take it in the evening, with food, without food, whatever, or with things that conflict with it. Especially if your illness is grave, you will follow to the letter the instructions of the doctor. Similarly, if Bhagavad Gita is the prescription that the Lord is giving, we must follow that prescription the way the Lord has expressed. And how is that? The Lord Himself says that while this parampara was broken, I am speaking of this parampara now to re-establish this knowledge. But why? Bhaktosi me sakha chaiti rahasyam hi etad uttamam. So, not only that this knowledge is given to you, how you should receive. What is that prescription? You should receive it, for I am giving it to you because you are a bhakta and you are a sakha. You are a devotee and you are a friend, or you are someone who is favorable to me. So, with these two attitudes, we become eligible to receive this knowledge. So, that was the second topic, why Bhagavad Gita. Now we will get into how to receive Bhagavad Gita, and we just talked of that. Like Arjuna, as Arjuna understood Bhagavad Gita from the Lord, we need to understand and receive Bhagavad Gita in the same way. So first, Arjuna realizes, we also should realize that while Arjuna, most accomplished warrior of the time, and he was not just a warrior, in the Gurukul, they all had been given knowledge of Vedas. They all had been given knowledge of all sorts of political science, all sorts of economic science, because as princes and then later on kings, they have to run kingdoms. So they were masters of economics, they were masters of, in today's world, masters of administration, they were masters of political craftsmanship and political science, they were masters of all sorts of arts and acts that were required. He wasn't somebody who was just a warrior and knew only how to fight. He had all of these things. Part of Gurukul knowledge at that time was telling them that you are the soul and not the body. And all the Upanishads would have been told to them. And yet, when faced with dire situation in life, he is unable to solve it. So he recognizes that I am unable to solve it. I need a master. Similarly, we also have to understand that not everything can be solved by us because of our very meager capabilities compared to Arjun Maharaj. And that we will require the help of the Lord was there, but the Lord's word is here. Right? Bhagavad Gita is right in front of us. The Lord's word, they say, is more powerful than the Lord. The Bhagavad Gita, in that sense, is the presence of the Lord and His word, and therefore it is quite powerful. So we have to follow it. How do we follow it? That is also, the instruction is also there in Bhagavad Gita. Tad vidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya. Upedakshayanti te jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshina. We need to, either to Bhagavad Gita itself or to our Guru Maharaj, preferably Guru Maharaj, We need to approach them, but how do we approach them? Through submissive inquiries. So not to challenge them, but submissive. If I do not understand today something, I park that question. Not that that means this knowledge is not valid. It is me who is unable to accept it. If there is 1 liter of, say, milk that is given to you, but if your container is only 100 ml, it is not the problem of the milk or the giver, it is the problem of the container. You have to realize that at some time when I have a bigger container, I'll understand more. I'll be able to absorb more milk. So similarly, park those questions but not challenge. But pariprashnena, it is not prashnena, not just question. Pariprashnena, repeated inquiries, because until it gets drilled into our brain and our consciousness, pariprashnena, keep asking, keep clarifying, because that is part of how you read a topic. And sevaya, be humble, perform service. The only remuneration that is expected and that makes you more and more eligible for knowledge, the fees that you have to pay, and you pay small fees in primary, a little more in secondary, then in college, and then in PhD. Similarly, the fees will go up and the seva has to go up. So you need to perform these things to gain this knowledge. This is how you receive the message of Bhagavad Gita. Then another thing, while the Lord is saying, Bhakto Sime Sakacheti. So being a friend and being, cordial is not enough. Why is it not enough? Because in understanding Bhagavad Gita, in chapter 10, Arjuna himself realizes that while he says, Sarvam etad ritam manne, I accept what you are telling me, all of this is complete truth. Yanmam vadasi keshav, whatever you are telling me. Nahite Bhagwan Vyaktim Vidur Devan Danava. But what you are telling cannot even be understood by either the demigods or the demons. And he is also said that it cannot be very easily understood by the most exalted sages. So if they cannot understand, then where are we and what is our position to understand? And therefore, we have to surrender, because a student who wants to be independent may have to learn how to fly a plane. But a surrendered passenger can just simply get into the plane and there is a pilot who will take it. That surrender is required, because our one step and the surrender brings the 9 steps from the Lord to make it a complete plan. And that is the devotional attitude. So it is equally important to have that attitude when we are receiving the message of Bhagavad Gita. I'll move to the next portion of the introduction, which is, so Srila Prabhupada now says, how does Bhagavad Gita remove that ajnana? So he speaks about those 5 topics that Prabhu has just covered. I'll very quickly mention that, the, those being the Jiva, chapters 1 to 6 cover that. Ishvara, they are all covered in all chapters, but primarily where this sort of manifest, the knowledge about the Jiva and how the Jiva can extract itself from the material world is in 1 to 6. Ishvara is in chapter 7 to 12. All of that is all Bhakti Yoga, and chapter 15. Then Prakriti is in chapter 13, 14, and 16 specifically, if you want to understand this material nature. Karma is part of chapters 2 to 6, but it is also there in chapter 17 and 18. And Kala is mentioned in chapter 8 and 16. Now, there is key thing here. You may ask, if we are part of the Lord, why is it that we are so miserable and helpless in this world? So then Prabhupada mentions that we are part of his Patastha Shakti, we are Ansha. We are equal in quality, but we are insignificant in quantity compared to the Lord. And because this material nature is the energy of the Lord, we are subdued by it. We always fall down in front of it. And therefore, we have to take the shelter of the Lord. Then Prabhupada says the knowledge of the Lord. The Bhagavad Gita reveals the knowledge of the Lord in a variety of ways. As first, Sarvalok Maheshwara, then someone who controls the material nature. But towards all through the Bhagavad Gita, and especially in the last chapter, in the final summarization, Prabhupada says the Bhagavad Gita will tell us the three stages of understanding the Lord. First as Brahma, then as Paramatma, and then as Bhagavan. So that is how Bhagavad Gita, through these 5 topics that are explained variously in Jnana Yoga, Dhyana Yoga, Karma Yoga sections of Bhagavad Gita, we can remove our ignorance, ajnana. But what is the purpose? So this is another thing where Prabhupada has spoken a lot and provided a lot of detail. The ultimate purpose of that knowledge is to gain our Sanatan Dharma. So if the soul is Sanatan, why are we engaged in service of and in pursuit of temporary things? The soul is eternal. It will only gain complete peace, complete satisfaction, complete happiness by associating with the eternal. Whatever that is the Sanatan Dharma. So what is eternal? The Lord is eternal. So we need to serve the Lord in his eternality. And it is also said that our Swarup is basically to serve the Lord. Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. Another interesting thing that I heard in another lecture related to the introduction is Dharma, Artha, and Kama. The more you do, we have a false thing that if we keep doing our Dharma, we will get salvation. No. The more we do Dharma, more Artha and more Kama will come to us. But Moksha may or may not come to us. Unless you are actually aspiring for Moksha by performing Dharma. So that is, and again, it will come clear as you understand karma and jnana to Bhagavad Gita, that why dharma may result in good activities, but good activities are also like carrying 1 kg of gold instead of carrying 1 kg of garbage. But it is still a weight that you have to carry. So moksha is important. It is that ultimate thing that we are looking for. But there are 5 types of moksha: Sayujya, Swarupya, Salokya, Sarashti, and Samipya. And it goes into a little bit of detail, but we as devotees should try to aim for Samipya, which is available in Golok Vrindavan. Swarupya, Salokya, and Sarashti is available only when we reach Vaikuntha, and we cannot reach Vaikuntha or Goloka unless we have first attained our Brahma or Brahma Jyoti or knowledge of our own self. So that is how you achieve moksha. The first is Sayujya, Swarupya, Salokya, Sarashti, and Samipya type of moksha. And then we realize our Swarupa. So as soon as we are in Brahma Bhuta state, we will start to understand that we, as we, again, in that stage, we are supposed to perform devotional service, not bhakti labate param. And in that bhakti, we will start to understand our actual position of serving Krishna. We are servants of Krishna, but the position could be Shanta, Dasya, Sakya, Vatsalya, and Madhurya Bhav. So one of these bhavs will manifest, and we'll know that in that bhav we are supposed to serve the Lord. So that until we reach that destination, we are somewhere in the middle, and therefore we have not really fully given justice to the knowledge that we received, or we are halfway in between. We don't want to leave the journey halfway in between, because having received this human life, we do not want to now, because of those 5 factors of Ajnana that I talked about, we do not want to risk another cycle of 8.4 million births and deaths, and with no guarantee that in that next time, whenever we get the human birth, we will actually find the exit door. We are at the exit door of the Cineplex. Let's just walk out and get back to our real life, back to Godhead. So that is the purpose with which Bhagavad Gita has been told. That is the purpose with which we should receive Bhagavad Gita. And until that purpose is achieved, our journey is halfway. And then Prabhupada speaks about Shankaracharya's Gita Mahatmya. We do not have time for it, but there is then the research versus transcendental knowledge. And Prabhupada says that everything that is experimental is experimented with our senses, but our senses are fallible. We are fallible to illusion. Our senses are imperfect. We are prone to commit mistake. We are prone to cheating. And anybody whose research you are going to follow is also susceptible to these four flaws. And therefore, for these reasons, the subject matter of Bhagavad Gita is not something that you can get from the so-called scientists. And the so-called scientists have no business meddling in and talking about Bhagavad Gita because their methods are not conducive to test and speak and verify what is spoken in Bhagavad Gita. So these were the seven topics that Prabhupada covered in his introduction. I'll take a pause here. I'll be happy to receive questions or comments, but please continue the discussions as I may have to drop very shortly. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Anybody with any questions or comments? Haribol. It seems like I put everybody to sleep.
No.
No, Prabhuji, Hare Krishna. Dhanotram. Thank you so much for this nectarine class. Very, very wonderful class, Prabhuji. I was waiting if somebody has any question or comment. But your classes are always so informative and so nice, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Bhataji. So maybe everyone can reflect and perhaps read the introductions. You will find what I have said is part of the introduction. If I have said anything more than that, my apologies. And if there are no questions or comments, maybe we can end our class here with our prayers to the Vaishnavas. वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्यैव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः।
Koಟಿ वैष्णव की जय।
कोटि वैष्णव
Niki Jai.
नमाचार्य श्रीदास ठाकुर की जय।
Jai.
प्रभुपाद की जय। श्रीमद् भगवद गीता की जय। His Grace हलाधर प्रभु की जय। His Grace विकास प्रभु की जय।
Hare Krishna.
Hare Bol, Hare Bol.
Happy Father's Day to all of the incredible father in our call. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Bol.
Hare
Hare
Bol.
Bol.
Hare Bol.